Well, guys, we are back for another episode of The Liberal Asshole Show. Episode 56, I believe it is, since I don't think I updated the title correctly. So, what are today's topics?
FBI raided Trump, Ukraine strikes Crimea, Liz Cheney loses, Keffels gets swatted, Biden not running in 2024, 4 Post Roe horror, and Hunter Avallone gets cancelled.
So anyways, let's get to the big one, as I think this happened literally the day after we did the last episode, and as the FBI raided Trump's Mar-a-Lago place recently. Because apparently he was a naughty boy who had stuff that he was not allowed to have. And of course, the right are mauling like crazy over this.
Of course they can.
And it's a political witch hunt and all that. No,
of course.
It seems pretty much legit. And from what Kyle's and others have covered since this happened, they were, if anything, maybe a little bit too more lenient on him. They tried to give him like every single benefit of the doubt to like not make them have to do it, but he pretty much forced them to do it. So, no, it ain't no political raid. And also, may I remind you, you do know Trump appointed the FBI director right now, right?
Yep, I remember that.
So you're gonna say the person he appointed is anti-him somehow? You sound like the same idiots that said all the judges that ignored all his stupid BS complaints about the 2020 election were all against him when he appointed most of them. So, and of course, Kyle did this long-ass video recently on it, so it's now time to finally watch it. So here we go.
It's a beefy one. I am wall-to-wall for you with a bunch of knowledge I'm going to drop straight into your cranium. So, first thing I want to talk about is how Trump is screwed. I'm going to get into detail
Pretty sure
on that
it covers
front.
the raid.
It is not screwed because of the thing that you're thinking right now. So, hold on just a minute. We'll dive into it. But there is something, or a few things, that are hanging over his head in a way that perhaps even old Donnie can't wriggle his way out of. So, again, hold on that front. I also have a bunch of updates on the right-wing meltdown over the FBI raid of Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, they've been molding so bad, it's so funny.
Sloppy Alex Jones show, and they make some sloppy arguments and say really dumb things. The White House is fully embracing the dark Brandon meme. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is that cringe? Is that not cringe? We'll get into that and much, much more. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. So we all witnessed what happened with the FBI raid of Mar-a-Lago the other day. And of course that was, rightly so, big leading news. Everybody and their mother who's involved in politics is reacting to it in real time. And again, that makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. I was talking about it as well because you can't avoid it. It's a huge story. Everybody's in speculation mode, and that's all you can really do with the limited knowledge that we have at this moment is gather the facts that currently exist and then speculate about what will happen in the future. But there's a way in which Trump is screwed that nobody's really talking about. So first, let me show you this from CNBC. Trump tax returns must be given to Congress, Federal Appeals Court says in new ruling. So everybody remembers when Trump was running for president, he kept saying like, oh yeah, totally, I'm going to release my tax returns, but I'm only going to release them after the audit of me is done. And every single time he was asked by the media, oh, would you look at that? Shocking. He happens to be under audit yet again. So he was just always under audit, according to himself. But of course that's not true. He just didn't want to release his tax returns. Why? Because there's probably damning things in there. Now, on the one hand, you might learn he's not as rich as he says he is. That's one thing, but that's really not all that damning. Everybody speculates that he's worth a lot less than he says he is anyway. Or, it can show discrepancies in terms of what he declares publicly versus what he actually files, and you can sort of sniff out financial fuckery. And so that might be one thing that's going on here. Now, I'd never really cared about the whole, tax thing. I never really cared about him releasing it or not. I knew he was hiding shit, so whatever they prove or find, I'm going to be like, well, of course. But he's no longer able to hide them. And so this is one piece of a larger thing that I'm gonna show you here, which really highlights that he's in trouble. So this is in CNBC again. They say tax returns of former President Donald Trump and related entities must be turned over to the White House, turned over to House Ways and Means Committee, a federal appeals court panel said in a ruling. The decision is the latest blow to Trump, who has repeatedly lost legal efforts to shield his tax returns and business-related documents from various investigations. Again, we're going to get into those investigations in just a second. Nobody's talking about these. The ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit was announced a day after FBI agents searched Trump's residence at his Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach, Florida. The raid is part of an investigation into the removal of sensitive documents from the White House when Trump left office in 2021. Now, there are a bunch of legal experts who are saying, yeah, that's the cover story. That's what the media believes. But in reality, this search was about a lot more than just the classified information that Trump may have taken. And Donald Trump, even though he released a long statement about how unfair the FBI raid is, he has a copy of the warrant. He can release what the warrant says, and he's not. Which makes you stop and think, well, why isn't he releasing it? Maybe because there's things bad that they're searching for in the warrant that relate to January 6th, for example, or other things. So, it's interesting. It seems like some hide the ball is being played here. Now, we're just getting started with the trouble that he's in. Another CNBC article. Trump real estate appraiser hands over thousands of documents to New York AG in civil probe. Okay. This is big. So there's a number of cases pending right now and investigations into Trump. One's in New York, one's in Georgia. And the one in New York is sort of about standard business practices and tax fraud and things of that nature.
Yep.
And Trump was kind of pulling an Alex Jones there for a hot minute, where he wasn't really complying with the court and he wasn't sending them the documents that he's legally required to send them. And then now we just learned, okay, they handed over thousands of documents. So this article says, a commercial real estate firm held in contempt of court for failing to hand over records on its appraisals of several Trump organizations' properties to New York's Attorney General has turned over nearly 36,000 documents, court filings show. New York Supreme Court Justice Arthur Engoron had found Cushman and Wakefield in contempt last month for not producing documents in State Attorney General Letitia James' civil probe into the Trump Organization's business practices and ordered the firm to pay a $10,000 a day fine until it complied. In a letter to the judge late Friday, James' office said it has now received Cushman's production, which amounts to about 35,867 documents since entry of this court's contempt order. The letter said the Attorney General's office was joining with Cushman in asking the judge to dissolve the contempt order and hold any contempt purged without any fines due or owing. So one of the stories that was reported on a while back is that one of Trump's tricks would be, when talking about his properties, he would overvalue the shit out of them. And he would say, let's just make a fake example here. My golf course is worth $700 million. And then he would, in his tax filings, he would have it down as, worth $80 million. And so he wanted to pay tax on that lower number, because then it's a lower tax bill. But in a public-facing sense, he would say it's much higher. And, if he tried to sell it, he would sell it at that higher number, etc. And so you can't do that. That's not something you could do. If you get caught doing that, that is a crime. So this is one of the things that they're looking into. Cushman and James spokespeople did not immediately respond to requests for comment. James' office is considering whether to file a civil suit against former President Donald Trump and his company over their business practices, and has said in court filings that it has uncovered substantial evidence establishing numerous misrepresentations in Mr. Trump's financial statements provided to banks, insurers, and the Internal Revenue Service. That's the other thing, is that Trump is loaded to the gills with debt. And,
which we already knew.
When you peek under that rock and you see what the numbers are really like, there's going to be a lot of angry parties there. Now, we already discussed how a lot of the big money political donors are abandoning him for DeSantis. But in terms of how he gets his financing in his private life, well, that almost certainly is drying up as well, because this is going to uncover quite a bit of nonsense, quite a bit of lying that they do. Still not done yet. Trump testimony expected soon in New York civil investigation. Former President Donald Trump is expected to be questioned under oath in the coming days in the New York Attorney General's long-running investigation into his dealings as a real estate mogul. The deposition could be a critical moment in the investigation of allegations that the Republican billionaire's company, the Trump Organization, misled banks and tax authorities about the value of prized assets like golf courses and skyscrapers. New York Attorney General Letitia James' office said in May that it was nearing the end of its probe and that investigators have amassed substantial evidence that could support legal action against Trump, his company, or both. Trump's deposition, a legal term for sworn testimony that's not given in court, is one of the few remaining missing pieces, the Attorney General's office said. Two of the former president's adult children, Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka Trump, sat for questioning in the investigation in recent days. Two people familiar with the matter said the people were not authorized to speak publicly about the investigation and did so on the condition of anonymity. The Trump's testimony had initially been planned for last month, but was delayed after the July 14th death of the former president's ex-wife Ivana Trump, the mother of Ivanka, Donald Jr., and another son, Eric. Eric Trump sat for a deposition in 2020. Donald Trump Jr.'s testimony last week was first reported by the New York Times. Messages seeking comment were left with James' office and with lawyers for the Trumps. They either declined comment or did not respond. James, a Democrat, has said in court filings that her office has uncovered, quote, significant evidence that Trump's company, quote, used fraudulent or misleading asset valuations to obtain a host of economic benefits, including loans, insurance coverage, and tax deductions. James alleges that the Trump Organization exaggerated the value of its holdings to impress lenders or misstated what land was worth to slash its tax burden, pointing to annual financial statements given to banks to secure favorable loan terms and to financial magazines to justify Trump's place among the world's billionaires. The company even exaggerated the size of Trump's Manhattan penthouse, saying it was nearly 3 times its actual size. A difference in value of about $200 million, James' office said. Trump has denied the allegations. Wow, what a shock. Explaining that seeking the best valuations is a common practice in the real estate industry. He says James' investigation is part of a politically motivated witch hunt and that her office is doing everything within their corrupt discretion to interfere with my business relationships and with the political process. There is no case, Trump said in a February statement, after Manhattan Judge Arthur Engoron ruled that James' office had the clear right to question Trump and other principals in his company. So, understand something, guys. James is she's the one who took down Andrew Cuomo. So she's sort of on top of her shit. Not gonna lie. Like, she sort of, dots her I's and crosses her T's. While James has explored suing Trump or his company, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has long pursued a parallel criminal investigation. That probe had appeared to be progressing toward a possible criminal indictment, but slowed after new District Attorney Alvin Bragg took office in January. Wow. A grand jury that had been hearing evidence disbanded. The top prosecutor who had been handling the probe resigned after Bragg raised questions internally about the viability of the case. Bragg has said his investigation is continuing, which means that Trump could invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and decline to answer questions from James' investigators. So, what we're looking for here is, number one, what's the penalty for actually committing these crimes? It's a civil case, so obviously that's different from a criminal case. But number two, if he sits for a deposition and he can't keep his mouth shut, we might see a situation that's sort of like Alex Jones-like situation where, Jones got caught dead to rights with perjury. I mean, he said, I looked through my phone, I didn't see any Sandy Hook texts. And then when his lawyer accidentally sent the text to the plaintiff's attorneys, they threw up on the screen, here you are texting about Sandy Hook. You said under oath in a deposition you didn't have any texts about Sandy Hook, and now here on the screen are your texts about Sandy Hook. Same thing with email. He said, I don't even use email. And then they're like, whose email is this? He's like, that's mine. Okay, so Trump doing a deposition is hilarious. I hope to watch it, but I'm not even done yet. See, look, you guys know, when Russiagate was at its peak, I was always the one telling you, I just don't see enough there. I don't see enough evidence, and a lot of the claims seem made up, whether it's, the P-tape or he's Vladimir Putin's puppet. And everybody thought, or a lot of people on the Democratic side thought Mueller was going to take Trump out of the White House on handcuffs. That just didn't happen, right? But I was warning you the whole time. But one of the other claims I always made is that He is a shady, dirty businessman, and I'm sure he's done a million run-of-the-mill financial crimes. I'm sure of it. Look, you can't be a real estate developer in New York in the 80s without, for example, like mafia connections. And Trump's lawyer back in the day was the same lawyer that the mafia used. There's been extensive reporting on that. And you're telling me there's, everything's been on the up and up throughout his entire business career? We know that's not true. We know, for example, what do you have? 6 different business bankruptcies, and he always, at the last minute, sort of stiffed everybody who worked for him. Even initially, when he would have buildings built, there were a lot of contractors who came out and said, the motherfucker never paid me. So anybody who is like that also is not keeping their books right and can be caught on some shit by a competent prosecutor. Okay. But I saved the best for last, guys. And this one, honestly, we're just talking child's play up until this point. This is something that dropped last month, which nobody really made a big deal of it, but I think it's actually perhaps even more important than whatever the FBI is doing with their raid and with the Department of Justice's investigation. Georgia prosecutors say all 16 fake Trump electors are targets in criminal probe. So now this relates back to January 6th. One of the things that they actually got the ball rolling on was this idea of like, let's just reject the election and let's do a fake elector panel. And you can't do that. That actually is illegal. And in Georgia, there's a criminal probe into these 16 fake Trump electors. Now, here's what they say. The Atlanta area prosecutor scrutinizing former President Donald Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia said Tuesday that all 16 of the fake electors who participated in a plan to subvert the Electoral College are now targets of an ongoing criminal investigation. Court documents filed late Tuesday reveal Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis has informed all of the 16 individuals who signed an unofficial electoral certificate that was ultimately sent to the National Archives in late 2020. What idiots. They may be indicted in the probe. The significant development indicates prosecutors are moving closer to possible criminal charges against those involved in the effort. It also suggests the probe may be drawn closer to Trump himself as it comes on the heels of subpoenas that were issued to several members of the former president's legal team who took part in overseeing the effort to overturn the election results in Georgia and other key battleground states. Each of the 16 persons who signed the unofficial elector certificate ultimately submitted to the National Archives. These guys are such idiots. Received a similar target letter alerting that person both that his testimony was required by the special purpose grand jury and that he was a target of the investigation, prosecutor said Tuesday. Court filings earlier Tuesday had revealed that 11 of the 16 fake GOP electors received letters notifying them that they were targets of the investigation and not merely witnesses. Wow. Willis office informed lawyers for those fake electors that the status change from witness to target was the result of new evidence that has come to light over the course of the probe. Quote, as our investigation has matured and new evidence has come to light, in a spirit of integrity, we feel it only fitting to inform you that your client's status has changed to target, Willis's office said, according to a defense filing. The Trump campaign's role in creating false election documents as a way to supplant Joe Biden's win in Georgia has come under increasing scrutiny by prosecutors in Georgia, as well as the Justice Department in recent months. CNN previously reported that Trump campaign officials oversaw efforts to put forward illegitimate electors in 7 swing states Trump lost. The House Select Committee investigating the January 6, 2021 insurrection has linked the effort to Trump's 7-part plan to overturn the election that culminated in the U.S. Capitol attack. That plan, according to the committee, included the fake electors, a pressure campaign on then Vice President Mike Pence to stop the counting of electoral votes, and the assembly of a violent mob that Trump directed to march to the Capitol. Attorneys for the electors say they are moving to quash grand jury subpoenas for appearances beginning on July 25th, calling them unreasonable and oppressive. Okay, so this case, the ball's already rolling. We're already getting somewhere. But the most important part is Eric Holder, former attorney general, who is deeply, deeply in the know in Georgia. He says Trump's going to be indicted. He's going to be indicted over this. Because you have the fake electors, you have the people who set it up with their 7-part plan or whatever it was, and all you need is a couple of them, or one of them, to flip on Trump and say, yeah, it was the big guy who gave the orders, and the orders were X, Y, and Z, and boom, you have a case. You have a criminal case. So he's dealing with civil lawsuits over unjust business practices. He's dealing with the FBI investigation. They say it's over taking classified material, but many experts say it's not just about that. On that warrant is more than just that. Some of it may pertain to January 6th. And then we also have these Georgia cases done by federal prosecutors where the ball's already rolling. The 16 fake electors are already under pressure from law enforcement, and if just one of them flips, now we're talking. And this doesn't even get into the other open questions around the January 6th committee, like, for example, there appears to be some clear evidence of witness tampering that went on. That's one thing. Another thing is there's been evidence uncovered and detailed reporting about how Trump was trying to do fundraising for his Stop the Steal rigged election stuff, and he said they set up a PAC that's all the money's going to go towards that. And then, like, none of the money went towards that, and they raised millions and millions and millions of dollars. So where'd that money go? That's fraud. Now, look, the witness tampering thing might be hard to prove because of, how detailed how specific and how high the bar is on that front. It might be hard to prove because of that. And maybe the fraud thing is too, in terms of the basically fake emails he sent out, fundraising, lying about where it was going. There may be some, giant loophole in the way you finance with these things that, he can get away with it. But you're talking about like 6, 7, 8 different fronts where they're honing in on him. And the reason I say Trump is fucked is this very simple point. Number one, if even one of these things works, he's fucked. Number two, even if they don't work, you're now at the point where it's like you're an average voter, you're a normie, you're like independent / moderate type. They're going to think, look, where there's smoke, there's fire. And even Republicans who have been interviewed by Fox News at Trump rallies say, look, I like the guy, I voted for him twice, but, he's just too toxic right now. We need somebody new. We need new blood. We need, like, DeSantis, for example. So, and we're going to get to the galaxy brain take a lot of people have a little bit later. The galaxy brain take of, like, well, actually, this is going to help Trump. I do not agree with that at all.
Like Bill Maher did have said that, too.
If one of these things works,
yeah,
it's a wrap for him. If none of them work...
Well, that's because he's a increasingly
the
far-right...
Where there's smoke, there's fire, then he's fucked that way, too. So... There was a time, I was one of the chief proponents of, like, the Teflon Don theory, that, like, look, man, he always seems to get away with every single thing he does. And that was very true for a very, very long time. But, when you have the entire Democratic establishment against you, now you have the entire Republican establishment behind the scenes that's against you and working to undermine you. And you have legal authorities up your ass relentlessly. And you have a very popular Republican governor who's only rising in popularity on the regular. And you have a media that still to this day, it just relentlessly shits on you. That's so many things that are against you that, it would be kind of a miracle for him to remain politically relevant and to win a general election in 2024. So, look, I'm sure many of you guys out there disagree with me. We've been down this path a million times before. I don't want to make the walls are closing in argument because I think that's stupid. I think it's possible, even all these cases, for whatever reason, end up failing, right? But we're not just talking about the legal aspect of this. We're also talking about the political ramifications and fallout from it. And Homeboy has 9 lives, but we might be on his 10th right now. And at some point, you run out of them. So we'll have to see. I don't want to be too definitive. The title of this video is a little bit clickbaity. All I'm saying is he's definitely in trouble, and nobody's even talking about these other legal issues that he have. And some of these other legal issues might actually be stronger than what the FBI and the Department of Justice are working on right now with that raid. Hey, y'all, do me a favor
I'm actually
and
a
like
little
and
surprised Kyle didn't cover the raid more, because I remember watching this and I remember him talking about it. So, since this happened like 2 weeks ago, from what we found out, it seems Trump had nuclear weapons documents and stuff like that.
Oh, yes,
and
I heard about that.
Stuff of the sort, not exactly sure what it is. And here's an interesting coincidence, too. I think Kushner got paid like $2 billion from Saudi Arabia. You gotta wonder. Do you think they paid him that much money to maybe try and help Trump get those documents so Saudi Arabia could possibly get them to try and build their own nuclear weapons?
Well, considering they're in a nuclear arms race with Iran,
Yeah.
that would not surprise me.
And of course, Trump, as you all know, is totally in the bank of Saudi Arabia and all that, so it's definitely not surprising whatsoever. And of course, cannot let them get nuclear weapons at all costs. So yeah, we gotta see about the raid.
Very interesting, and hopefully it is the beginning of the end.
Yep, we can only hope. But anyways, now on to the next topic, which is...
That would be Ukraine striking Crimea.
This also happened very soon after we did the last episode. Now, of course, remember we said in the last episode we were probably not going to cover the Russo-Ukraine war that much, since it largely has been a stalemate, but I think this has been, honestly, too important of something to just ignore or talk later. So recently, although it has not officially been confirmed that Ukraine did this, there have been massive explosions across Crimea recently, if you saw any of that.
Yeah, I saw that.
Now, of course, there's conflicting things on it. Russia, Ukraine, even America and all, they're saying like completely different things. Basically, no one knows exactly for sure. But it's a wonder if maybe Ukraine somehow made or reconfigured missiles they got, because the range that it came from, if it was a missile, I think it was like 200 kilometers or whatever it is, and that would... what?
Whoa!
Or something like that. Like, it would be like southern Ukraine where it came from. It's like, the missiles distance that's required is nothing that, like, the West has given Ukraine. Like, America specifically gave them less long-range missiles to avoid possibly striking Russia. Remember that. So,
yep, I remember that.
So they had to either have made these or reconfigured them somehow to do this if they possibly did it. And they're possibly doing it. They're destroying, like, damaged in the first one a whole bunch of Russian planes. And from what I heard, I saw it, I think it was this morning on Kiev Independent or somewhere, that Russia possibly lost somewhere between 10 to 40% of their Black Sea Air Force in that one attack.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and of course, as we mentioned before, Russia largely has put a big chunk of their Baltic fleet, the Black Sea fleet. First, it was out and about. Then they eventually moved to Crimea to keep it safe after Moskva got sunk. And now lately, they've been putting them back to, like, near Sochi, like on the other side of the Black Sea. Because they're trying to keep them out of range of getting destroyed. Because, remember, Russia cannot bring any more ships into the Black Sea because Turkey closed the Bosphorus Strait. So,
yep, I remember that.
So, they're trying to conserve what they have as much as possible. So, now, of course, one of the things I've heard is Russia has said, like, one of our troops, like, dropped cigarettes and stuff like that. Like, makes them sound like really incompetent.
Cover that out.
I mean, that makes you sound really incompetent if that's true. And also, I find a little bit hard to believe that dropping or using cigarettes at bad places would cause this much, especially since it's happened multiple times since. Like, it seems even more too incompetent for them to even do. And also another thing they've said is that, it's like an inside job. Like, Ukrainian special forces have, like, infiltrated these bases and, like, set up bombs and stuff to go off in the air, which, I mean, that's possible, but that seems a little hard because Crimea, this was, like, I think the first one was, like, deep into Crimea. And like I said, a very long reach from Ukraine. So how on earth would any Ukrainian special forces somehow sneak past the occupied area, get deep into Ukraine, and they don't have a navy, so they can't like secretly do an amphibious landing somewhere. So I find that a little hard to believe too. What do you gotta say about that?
Yeah, that's what it seems kind of like.
Yeah, and been massive evacuations recently, and of course making Russia look even more humiliated. Because remember, the war was supposed to be over a long time ago. Now their illegal controlled area of Crimea is now under strikes now. Which, by the way, last I heard, possibly like that big one that happened first off only killed like one person compared to all the thousands and thousands of Ukrainians killed because of Russia's strikes.
Yep.
Shows more humane, and plus it's only been military targets. Maybe Ukraine morally's on the right side on this one.
Well,
So-
at least more morally on the right.
Yeah. So I gotta wonder, especially since I want you to think about this too, since no one knows for sure, and honestly, I bet you Russia does know what happened, but they don't want to admit it for two different reasons. If you want to hear about it, one, they might know that it is Ukraine, but they don't want to admit it because it makes them look weak. And like, because remember, it was supposed to be the war was supposed to end in like 3 days, and now it's been almost 6 months, and now Crimea is facing strikes.
3 days for Ukraine, a day for Moldova, and probably 2 days for Georgia.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like over by now, and it's not. And now they're getting attacked deep beyond their occupation zones, making them look very vulnerable. So that's one possibility. So they don't want. So they want to pretend like nothing's happening, everything's under control, and all that. So that's one possibility. We gotta see about that.
Possible.
And then here's another one. What if they do know it is Ukraine, but they don't want to admit or do anything about it because if they did, they might have to escalate the war and possibly do something that might have to bring America in or something like that. And they know that they'll probably lose if they have to deal with NATO and America and all that, so they don't want to like push the envelope, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I can see that possibly as well.
Because, yeah, outside of nuclear weapons, there is no way Russia is going to be able to beat the rest of Europe and America. Not a chance.
Oh, yeah, speaking of escalation, have you seen how pathetic Jacob Hickey's been?
No.
How he's basically lusting for World War III?
No. And also, now that you mentioned that, maybe we can bring this up really quickly. Have you heard about the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant?
Yes. Oh, God.
So, for all of you who don't know, there is a... Ukraine has, I think it was like 7 nuclear power plants across the country, including Chernobyl. There was another one, I think it was somewhere between Kherson and somewhere like north of Crimea in that southern Ukraine area called Zaporizhia. And Russia took control of it very soon into the war, and from what reports I've read up over the last like week or so, Russia is supposedly have put ammunitions and stuff in there and use it. Basically, they're using it as like a military base and firing weapons at it and trying to like goat Ukraine into attacking it, which of course, if they did or some damage happened, it could possibly release nuclear radiation, which would be devastating, like Chernobyl level bad and stuff like that, which is not good. And also I've heard a report like the last few days that Russia might be trying to do something to do like an attack on it, like even maybe blow it up internally and such. So,
oh God,
I have no idea what's the report on that. Now, thankfully, I heard, although of course Putin agreed to this, so take it with a grain of salt, because he actually talked to Macron earlier this morning that he actually agreed to allow IAEA inspectors to examine the place to see if the place is safe, because that's been a big concern ever since Russia took over the place, that all the shelling and all the stupid stuff they've done there, that they're afraid that the power plant is unsafe and maybe leaking radiation. And of course, with the threats of maybe possibly blowing it up, that is a big concern. And that also might be something that could possibly bring NATO and America in, which would make you wonder why would Russia even try to do something like that if that's possible. Like,
yeah.
Just more incompetence on top of incompetence, so we gotta see about this too.
Scary.
So
I've got a friend in Ukraine that's like 2-hour drive from Mariupol, and so things are pretty tense.
And of course, supposedly soon, although it should probably be kept secret, but that's the speculation for like the last several months that Ukraine might be doing their southern offensive in the Kherson eventually soon. And of course, you know
Ooh.
and of course, you know, if possible, they are going to try and take back Crimea. And I wouldn't be surprised if they are doing all these attacks. It's like a prep up to possibly get ready for that, to, like, weaken like their defenses behind the line. Which since the last few months or so, they've actually been destroying like a whole bunch of bridges in the Kherson area. They're basically trying to like trap Russia in and try and like box them in, like encircle them, like World War II style, possibly in the Kherson area.
Yeah.
Destroy all the access ways to get in, so you can't get supplies out, and you can't escape. So when we invade you, now of course, this is another thing you gotta be concerned about too. If Ukraine actually did try to take back Crimea, regardless if they're able to or not, you gotta be concerned about would Russia maybe consider going finally to the nuclear weapon option, because remember, they view Crimea as part of Russia, regardless of how we feel about it. So it's considered their territory, and that's one of the nuclear doctrines. They will consider it if they're actually invaded. So you gotta really hope that they don't consider that, and if you gotta be very careful with Ukraine in this regard. So you gotta see about that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a delicate situation.
Although at the same time, if they did drop any nuclear weapons, that would possibly bring them in either. I mean, I'm bringing like America and NATO in too. So
Yeah.
like literally anything Russia does is gonna fuck them over. So you hope they would realize that it would be suicidal, but you never know. I mean, they knew all the stuff they were gonna be facing when they invaded back in February, and yet they still did it, despite all the problems they faced since, and even problems that we even probably didn't think they were gonna be facing. So you shouldn't have invaded Ukraine in the first place, you idiots.
Yep.
Alright, so, like we said, hopefully it could just be resolved soon, but I doubt that'll happen anytime soon. Alright, so now, on to the next topic.
Bye-bye, Liz Cheney.
Okay, so, remember in the last episode we covered this, when, Liz Cheney possibly she didn't say it outright, but it was like implied that maybe she would run against Trump in 2024 in some way. Well, I mentioned in the last episode that she had a primary coming up very soon, and unfortunately for her, it was very likely that she was going to lose that primary. Well, that happened this week, and she lost, I think it was somewhere between 30 to 37 points.
Yeah, she got obliterated.
So she got replaced by an idiot Trumpster, and the funny thing is
Mm-hmm.
that she agrees with Trump on like 93% of the issues, but because
she's a fascist with that, like a little bit, at least partially mask on, while the Trumpists are like, yeah, we want a new Nazi terror state.
Yeah, so because she dared to admit the reality that yes, Biden won the election, and yes, Trump instigated January 6th. Because she had the nerve to say that and be involved in the January 6th committee, the conservatives in Wyoming had a giant meltdown over it and primaried her over those two things. So she's going to be Congress still to at least January 3rd unless she resigns. So it's not like she's gone right now, but the fact that conservatives had this much of a meltdown to get rid of someone who pretty much agrees on every single thing is pretty absolutely sad. And of course, we got the video of Kyle covering it too. So let's watch this insanity. So pathetic.
Election results. Breaking. Liz Cheney loses her primary to Trump-backed election denier Harriet Hageman, per projection. So the last I checked, I don't know whether she lost by 30 points or 37 points, something like that. It wasn't close, dog. It was not close. So why did this happen? I mean, the answer is as straightforward as possible. On this point, the conventional wisdom is correct. It's because she's a crusader for holding Trump accountable for trying to overturn the results of Biden winning the election.
I kid you not, probably like the only thing that she's probably done good in her entire life, and she has to lose a primary because of it. Absolutely pathetic.
Yep, of course.
And what happened on January 6th. Now, people are pointing out, accurately, it is kind of ironic because Liz Cheney supported her dad and George W. Bush stealing an election in 2000.
Yep, I actually looked it up recently, too. She was heavily involved in it.
This particular election being stolen because Trump is not... He's not highbrow about it, and he doesn't pretend. It's very crass and brazen and, like, in your face that he's just a sore loser and effectively doesn't care what the results are. He's just going to assert he won anyway, right? But that is the reason she went down. That is definitely the reason she went down.
It's absolutely pathetic.
I have here for you some of her speech when she right when she lost. She came out and gave this speech in Wyoming. Let's listen.
2 years ago, I won this primary with 73% of the vote. I could easily have done the same again. The path was clear. But it would have required that I go along with President Trump's lie about the 2020 election. It would have required that I enable his ongoing efforts to unravel our democratic system and attack the foundations of our republic. That was a path I could not and would not take.
And yeah, that is a fact. If she went along with the big lie, she would be elected in a landslide. But because she dared to actually acknowledge reality for a little bit, she lost.
So look, you got to keep it real. On that point, she's correct. She easily could have won re-election, even if she half-heartedly went along with the mob that's saying, you know, oh, the election was stolen and Trump's the rightful winner. Even if she half-heartedly went along with them, she would have won re-election and she would have won easily. But she didn't do it. So now, understand something, guys. This is like literally the one issue where Liz Cheney is correct. Because, you know what? Her voting record and 538 tracks this in detail. She votes 93% of the time with Donald Trump.
Yep.
So she is Donald Trump. She's just Donald Trump who believes in
She's a slightly masked-on fascist. Unfortunately, she is not a complete fascist. She is not a Trumpist fascist, and therefore she must die.
And civility, and she believes that in this particular election, he should have stepped aside and done the right thing. So, but you have to keep all those points matter, right? You have to keep all those points in your head. Anyway, more for you. Now this one is interesting.
The great and original champion of our party, Abraham Lincoln, was defeated in elections for the Senate and the House before he won the most important election of all. Lincoln ultimately prevailed, he saved our Union, and he defined our obligation as Americans for all of history. Speaking at Gettysburg of the great task remaining before us, Lincoln said that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from this earth. As we meet here tonight, that remains our greatest and most important task. Most of world history is a story of violent conflict, of servitude and suffering.
Okay. So she's saying, hey, look, Lincoln lost elections, and then he won the presidency. And
look
people
at
are pointing
Dementia
out,
Joe.
Hey, is this
he
her
ran for
saying,
president
like,
twice, and then he finally
I'm gonna run
won
for president?
the third time.
And the chatter on that is getting louder and louder, and she's not exactly swatting it aside. In fact,
but yeah,
she's
as Kyle's
feeding into
mentioned,
it.
her
She's
mentioning
saying,
Lincoln, you gotta wonder if she's really threatening the run in 2024 to stop Trump now.
Look, come hell or high water, I'm going to stop Donald Trump. But then the question arises, does Liz Cheney actually think she can win the presidency? And I don't think she's dumb enough to believe that. So in other words, I think she might run for president for the sole purpose of serving as a quote-unquote spoiler effect.
And we actually mentioned that in the last episode, so now, 2 weeks later, you gotta wonder, do you think she's more likely to do this now or not, or no change?
Maybe. Might just do it despite
Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, that is possible. I don't think she would... Right now, it probably would either be Trump or DeSantis most likely get it, because she's a neocon cunt. The conservatives don't like those kind of people anymore. They want people like Trump that are brazen about this stuff. She's not. And she's hardcore anti-Trump, so, like all you anti-Trump conservatives, guess what? You're never going to win the Republican Party unless you got rid of all the Trumpsters, which is not going to happen anytime soon. So, don't think she'd probably win the primary, but maybe she'd be like, screw it, I'll just run independent and screw you that way.
take the election away from
that's
Donald
what she
Trump
might be
versus
planning.
whoever his Democratic opponent may be. I think she might do that. Now, but here's the problem, right? And this is something not many people are talking about. Is it possible that if she runs as an independent or something and, you know, she can take 3% of the vote and she could take down Trump? Is that possible? Yeah. But it's also possible that since all she seems to talk about nowadays is January 6th, is the rigged election stuff, is going after Trump, it might not work like that. In fact, she might take most of her votes from whoever the Democratic candidate is, because there are many mindless resistance liberals and some who might be very wealthy who might prefer Liz Cheney now over whoever the Democratic candidate is.
I don't really agree with Kyle on this one. First off, right now, I still think right now Biden is going to be the 2024 nominee unless he straight up refuses to do it or dies or something like that. I think he's...
Yeah.
Well, actually, we're going to be covering it a little bit later on, but I still think...
yeah.
But right now, I still think he's most likely, because all he has to do, he has the easiest path to any Democrat right now. Just announce you're running, and that's pretty much it. He doesn't even really have to do anything, because that's usually how primaries go for the incumbent president of their party. Like, it rarely ever, nothing happens pretty much. So if he announces he's running, he's like pretty much set. And if Biden wins, gets the nomination, do you really think any of those people that Kyle would talk about would choose Cheney over him? Because remember, if they do vote for Cheney, they're risking Biden losing to maybe DeSantis or Trump as well. And those people would probably vote for Biden regardless. So if Biden's the nomination, why would they vote for Cheney when they have Biden if they want to make sure Trump or DeSantis doesn't win? So, that doesn't make any sense. The only way that would make sense is if maybe it was a progressive running. But honestly, if that was the case, like Bernie or something like that, I don't think they would pick Cheney. I bet they would just straight up pick Trump or DeSantis, which a lot of rich people back in 2020 and such did say they would do if Bernie got the nomination. Because it's more important to stop progressives than it is fascists. So yeah, I don't really buy Kyle's logic here. The people that are hardcore resistance people are most likely going to be hardcore partisan Democrats that would never leave the Democratic Party. Especially if it's possibly Biden wins the election.
It is. So, look, if she's thinking, I want to try to take this election from Trump, okay, I salute you on that. That's what's up. Thank you for your service, right? But if functionally that's not what ends up happening, it's also possible that she just sort of 50% takes from Trump and 50% takes from the Democrat, and it's sort of moot, right? Doesn't really have any intended effect. All those things are possible, but, LOL at the idea that she thinks she might be able to win an election.
Yeah, if she really thinks that she's an idiot. Right? Who knows?
But I don't
might
think
not be her reason.
That. I think it's more, I want to serve as a spoiler effect. And I'm going to stop Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's more likely.
Water.
That's probably
but
her main reason.
Whether or not that will be how it actually unfolds is yet to be seen. So, I don't know, man. That's interesting. So anyway,
we have history of this in 1912.
Cheney. Now, we had Wyoming elections, but also Alaska elections. And unfortunately, I don't have much for you on that front, particularly because we have to wait for about a week to 2 weeks to get all the results because the absentee ballots come in late in Alaska.
And this was a few days. This was, I think, right after Cheney's primary, so either that Tuesday night or Wednesday. And from what I heard from Let's Talk Elections, it's possible because they actually, no, I'll hold my tongue because I think Kyle's going to talk about it.
But what I do have to show you is this. So ranked choice voting debuts in Alaska special election where Sarah Palin is fighting for a seat in Congress.
Yes, Sarah Palin is actually trying to run for Congress in Alaska. Oh God, remember her? Oh jeez. Back in our teenage days, she was the insane one. But Alaska actually has as Kyle says, ranked choice voting in Alaska. This is the first time they're using it.
Nice.
And from if I remember correct, actually I'll hold my tongue because I think Kyle's going to talk about it.
So they now have ranked choice voting. And the way it's going to impact this race is interesting. It makes it a much more interesting race because of ranked choice voting. Former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin is the most notable name on Alaska's ballot to finish the rest of the late Representative Don Young's term, though her path to Congress is not guaranteed, and the outcome of the race may not be known for a couple weeks. Alaska's ranked choice voting system enables voters to choose multiple candidates on the ballot and rank them in order of preference. Unless a candidate's candidate receives over 50% of the first choice vote, the candidate with the fewest first choice votes will be eliminated. And then voters' second choices will be reallocated to the remaining candidates.
By the way, we need this system everywhere in the country.
This process of elimination and redistribution continues until a candidate wins a majority, and may be delayed until absentee ballots are counted. Those ballots can be received until August 26th, 10 days after the election.
Ooh, nice.
Palin, I used to say Palin, and I don't know why that popped back up now. Palin, Republican businessman Nick Begich, and Democrat Mary Peltola are on the special election ballot for Young seat, while Palin, in her first campaign since she was the 2008 Republican presidential nominee, was the top vote getter in the June primary for the seat. An Alaska Survey research poll in July simulated the rounds of ranked choice voting and found that Palin would be eliminated in the first round of reallocation.
Interested.
That's interesting. So the theory is, if this wasn't a ranked choice voting system, she would probably do better. Since it is a ranked choice voting system, she might do worse. Now, she's not the favorite for the race, but she still has a chance of winning the race. Ivan Moore,
it is two
longtime
Republicans running, so that is like a spoiler between each other.
Who conducted the Alaska Survey research poll, said that Peltola is likely to get the most first choice votes because Begich and Palin are likely splitting the Republican vote. So do you understand that? So you got two Republicans and one Democrat. The Republicans are going to split their vote. The Democrats going to have the most in the first round.
Which possibly means, depending on the vote, Democrats could have a congressman in Alaska. In fact,
that'd be awesome.
In fact, I think they're only one too, because Alaska only has free seats. Free electoral votes and 2 are senators, so 1 congressman. Oof.
Yep.
But then when he gets to the second round,
amazing.
Something else happens. He said Begich would likely win against Peltola after the reallocation of picks from voters who put Palin as their first choice. But that if Begich is eliminated first and his voters' choices are split up, those votes do not exclusively go to Palin. Interesting.
Yeah, because we covered it before. Alaska, despite being very rural and very low populated, the conservatives up there are actually way more libertarian than religious fundamentalists like Palin is.
Quote,
well, they kind of they kind of have to be where they live.
Like the favorite to win. She's not the favorite. She may well win, but she's not the favorite to win, Moore said. So we got this race, then we also have Murkowski. Murkowski was a pro-impeachment Republican, pro-Trump impeachment Republican, and she's facing a challenger to her right, a Trump candidate. And again, we don't have the results for that yet, but everybody's through to the next round, is what we know. But it's still going to be about 10 days until we get the final word on how this election went. So anyway, there you have it. That's the election breakdown. And, next time we get the information we're looking for, I'll make sure to share it with you guys. All right, guys, that is the show.
So that was also very interesting. So we got to say about that. Cheney going down.
No surprise. Well, Liz Cheney was doomed as soon as she
decided to be correct for once.
She was not going to be a Trumpist, QAnon lover, a QAnon Trumpist. Well, she's still kind of QAnon, so... But, and she signed her political death warrant, so...
It's unfortunate because... it is unfortunate because at least she acknowledges reality in some regard, whereas now she's going to be replaced by someone who doesn't acknowledge reality in any single thing and would try and steal elections. And then we got to say about...
I think the election was stolen, and they're going to try and steal the election next time.
And, of course, we got to say about possibly Alaska getting a Democratic congressman.
Be awesome.
Yep. So, now on to the next topic.
That would be... this one. This is the one I wanted to talk about. Keffel's getting swatted. Now,
I'm going to be upfront. I didn't know much about Keffel's recently, so I had to, binge watch a little bit. She was on Vosh recently, so she is a transgender leftist YouTuber and stuff like that. And I honestly have a little bit of a negative view on her because... Did you know her and Hunter Avallone had a huge drama shit recently?
Yeah, I heard about that from a while ago, yes.
Yeah. Now, Hunter accidentally doxed her looking up some info about her. So, That was bad on his part. He invited her on his channel. He apologized and all that. But she acted like such a whiny cunt that she pretty much lost any sort of sympathy that I would have for her. Like, she really, really acted like insane. Like one of those insane people that hunters deal with all the damn time. Including, what I just found out, apparently he did a debate with someone who's obsessed with his wife now all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I've seen that in my recommended. I'm getting a fair bit of Hunter Avallone recommendations.
Gotta watch that later on. But yeah, she really made herself look really terrible, even if she was the victim in that regard. And that's pretty impressive to look bad when you were the one that was in the wrong. But anyways, very soon afterwards, and by the way, Hunter actually donated to her for what she's about to talk about. Sometime afterwards, she actually got swatted recently. Now, for all of you who don't know, swatting is when someone calls the cops and pretends to be you and says you did something horrible, like in this case, that she was gonna shoot up I think she's in Ontario's like state government and kill like all their politicians there and stuff like that. And and made it towards her address. So they went to her house in the middle of the night while she was sleeping and swatted her, like had guns pointed at her in her bed and all that. They confiscated like all of her like streaming equipment, computers, phones, everything. And then of course they interrogated her for like 12 hours, and of course they misgendered her, dead named her, and all this other creepy transphobic stuff. And it's really unfortunate what happened to her. So here's her video on it.
On August 5th, I was woken up by London Police Services.
London as in Ontario, not the UK, if anyone didn't know.
Pointing an assault rifle in my face at my home. I was told later that at 6 a.m. that morning, an email impersonating me was sent to every city councillor in the city of London, Ontario, stating that I have an illegal firearm, that I killed my mother, and that I plan to go to City Hall and shoot every cisgender person I see. I was shown the email while I was being interrogated in police custody. While the emails were riddled with grammatical errors and read more like something a troll would say than something I would sincerely say, the police took it seriously. Not only that, the email said my name was Clara Sorrenti, but also stated what my dead name was. It was an obvious attempt to make the police humiliate me. During the arrest, the police officer referred to me by my dead name. I was booked in the station under my dead name. The police, when talking to my mother, referred to me as her son. This is despite the fact that I have run as both a member of parliament and a member of provincial parliament under my name, Clara Sorrenti. The fact that a fake email led to London Police Services booking me under my dead name reveals the prejudice that many police have towards transgender people. This is despite the fact that the email contained my real name before ever even mentioning my dead name. This is one of the property bags returned to me after I was released from custody. All of the property bags returned to me have Roberts written on them. Roberts was my last name until I legally changed my name first to Kaylee Sorrenti on January 25th, 2012, and then later to Clara Sorrenti on March 7th, 2018. When I changed my name, I took my mother's maiden name. My last name has not been Roberts in over 10 years. The only reason that Roberts is on the property bags is because I was booked under my dead name. A search warrant was issued, which I have a copy of here. They were looking for a handgun, ammunition, cartridges, cleaning tools, a gun case, cell phones, and computers. They seized both my personal and work phone, as well as the work computer that I broadcast on Twitch from. Not only that, but the police seized my fiance's cell phones and laptop, as well as their external drive, which contained the only copy of their PhD thesis and other important university documents. Because of the negligence of the police, we were both left functionally unemployed, and I have spent thousands of dollars replacing our computers and cell phones so our lives aren't completely destroyed by what happened to us. After the police interrogated me and realized this is a situation that has happened to me before, I was released with no charges. Without my devices, I could not let people close to me know what had happened to me, and they were in the dark for hours. Even after acquiring a new phone, I still cannot log into some of my accounts because the London Police Service holds the phone that my two-factor authentication goes to. This same situation happened just over a week ago, on Sunday, July 31st, in a city I don't live in, Toronto. On that day, I talked to Sergeant Nathan Gibson after someone impersonating me made similar threats to Toronto politicians. Sergeant Gibson chalked it up to a swatting attempt. I was not charged with a crime, nor was I named as a suspect in an investigation by the Toronto Police. London Police Services should have been aware that this could happen. In fact, my brother called London Police Services on March 27th in a conversation lasting 9 minutes and 16 seconds to see if my family could be put on a no-swatting list, only to be treated like we were wearing tinfoil hats and completely dismissed. They told my brother things would be fine. They were wrong. Despite getting a search warrant to search my home and finding no guns, as well as my mother alive and well, I am still a suspect in the investigation by London Police Services. My devices, including my fiance's hard drive that contains all of their important PhD-related documents, will not be returned to us before digital forensics analyzes them. This is a process my lawyer advised me could take months. Swatting is a crime. Identity theft is a crime. And because it was a crime that was motivated by hatred against transgender people, it was a hate crime perpetrated against me. Instead of the police helping me, they terrorized me and my loved ones, traumatizing me and leaving my fiance and I on the verge of losing everything. They victimized me for being the victim of a hate crime. I need your help because I can't do this alone. I started a GoFundMe to move immediately, recoup my losses, and build a legal fund to protect my rights. I have been subject to emotional damages, financial damages, blatant violations of the Human Rights Act, and discrimination on the basis of gender identity and expression. I was also subject to unjust
you have that in
seizures,
Canada, unlike
which
most of
not
America.
only affected my livelihood, but has severely disrupted the work that my fiance is doing in their doctorate program, and has the potential to impact whether or not my fiance finishes their doctorate. Because there is no policy in my city against swatting, there is no guarantee this will not happen again, and my home is not safe.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is, like, swatting is a new thing recently. It came up, and very few places have it, which is unfortunate because, guys, people have died for this. This even happened in 2017, Review Tech USA covered it, where some YouTuber, I think they was, got swatted, but the person who swatted them gave them the cops the wrong address. They went to the neighbor's house and led to an altercation that led to that person getting killed by the cops for something that he had no involvement in whatsoever. This leads to people dying, and the cops and the laws too need to be changed, where they need to verify this stuff first before they go and do stuff like what happened to Keffels here. Who knows? Maybe if possibly if she woke up the wrong way, maybe they would have killed her right then and there, possibly, and stuff like that. Anything can happen when you're dealing with fucking SWAT officers and stuff like that with guns pointed at your face and stuff like that when you don't even know what the hell's going on. For all you know, it could be a burglary that's happening, and you might just grab your gun like in an instant. So, yeah, the laws need to be immediately done so stuff like this can't happen to risk more people dying.
If you are a journalist or someone who works in media and you want to reach out to me for comment, you can reach me at inquiries@keffels.info. I'll leave all additional information and links in the description. I do not yet know when I'm going to be returning to broadcasting on Twitch. When I was woken up by police officers and saw the assault rifle pointed at me, I thought I was going to die. I feel traumatized. I just want everyone to know what happened and to ask for help so I can seek justice for what happened to me.
Yeah, and since this happened, because like I said, Vosh covered it, and she actually went on Vosh's stream a few days ago, and I can't remember if this is true or not, because I only saw it one time, but she might have gotten some of her stuff back recently, because that was a financial
I heard that. At least some of her husband's stuff got returned.
Yeah, because that's a financial strain. Not only had to rebuy all the stuff again, but from what I heard, the computers are not as powerful either, so she might not be able to stream on them really effectively either, which, as someone with a dead graphics card at the moment for like a year plus, I can relate to that one. So yeah, what do you guys say about this?
It's fucked up. Really fucked up. And the fact that someone did this?
And
Just...
also, like she said, it's happened more than once. Like, happened a week
Yep.
or so ago. But, of course, that time, the cops had a feeling it was a SWAT or something like that, so they contacted her about it first and stuff like that. Which is what they need.
Yeah.
The cops need to do beforehand to prevent stuff like this from happening again. And, of course, she does. I don't know if it's the case anymore, because, like I said, this was like 2 weeks or so ago, but she did have a donation thing to help her go through this crap, so if you're able to, go donate to that, but I don't know where I could find the link for it, which, by the way, Hunter did, which, hey, good on Hunter, because I personally don't even know if I would be able to probably do that either after the way she treated him after she apologized to him. Like, it was unbelievable.
There you go.
Alright, so we found the link. Hopefully, if I remember, I will post it in the, not description, in the pinned comments, so hopefully if you all want to help out, you can do so. Because what happened to her was unacceptable. But now...
And it absolutely was.
But you know what? Now, you know what? Since Hunter was involved somewhat in this too, although not the SWAT, but like what happened beforehand, maybe we should talk about this. Hunter Avallone getting canceled.
Why he got cancelled. I think I've already seen this video, but it'd be interesting to commentate about it.
I was really...
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, I saw it already too. I was very unsure if I should play it because it's almost a half an hour long, but the stuff in it was like too much detail to just ignore it. So anyways, for everyone, I think we've covered him before, but not much. Hunter Avallone was is a YouTuber. He used to be a stupid, like, trollish Trumpster retard when he started on YouTube all the way up to like 2020 or so. But starting in 2019, he started to change. Now, he's a sock dem, like you and me.
Yeah.
So he's a little progressive now, mostly. Although there are some things he's still cringy about. Like, he's still like hardcore anti-feminist.
That's what I call the remnants of his reactionary time, which I've still got certain bits of.
And also, he's
probably something a lot of us have to varying degrees.
He's hardcore, like, anti, like, Medicare for all, only wants public options, stuff like that. So he's not all the way fully over to sock dem, but he's definitely a lot closer than he was when he was a Trumpster. And of course, he has gotten, ever since then, he's gotten so much shit. He's never recovered the subs he's had from like 2 years ago when he's done that.
Never. He never will. Because all the money's stuff's on the right. And he's got, of course, the bot views too.
And he's a grifter, and everyone and their mother stupidly hates him and goes at them for the stupidest reasons as they try and simp over his wife for the stupidest reasons ever, which, by the way, like we said, a recommendation which you and me both need to watch and laugh, and oh my god, I feel bad for Carissa having to deal with that all the time.
Yeah.
Sounds like TradCon conservatives are jealous that he actually lives a TradCon life. Oof.
Yeah.
Stay Malden. But anyways, he got into a kerfuffle recently, and it's about Hunter. This is probably gonna be a tough way to phrase it without sounding really weird and stupid, but he wants to destigmatize a little bit, not necessarily pedophilia, but people who are not like acting on their child predator instincts or such, so he can help them get help to not be child predators and such.
Yep.
Like, we had to watch the video in order to fully explain it.
Yeah.
But the people, when he did that, because he's been doing this like he did a video of this like a few months ago, but oh boy, people mauled and had a meltdown over it, implying that he supports pedophilia and stuff like that, and really cringy things. So, let's watch the video, and by the way, he's got stats backing him up too, so oof, get wrecked.
Oh boy.
I will break down my original take, and then I literally had to delete it because it was being so heavily misunderstood, and I posted a clarifying tweet, which I will then go through in a moment. So,
oh, he has a Reddit, I see. I might have to go join that if I get a chance to remember.
My original tweet was simply that if you care about reducing child abuse, then we need to be willing to destigmatize pedophilia. Now, right off the bat, a lot of people have suddenly started screaming, their brains have shut down, no more thinking, it's all out the window, okay? Facts, fuck them, we're scared, throw all pedophiles in a wood chipper, ha ha ha. I get it, okay? Because when you hear pedophilia, you instantly think of some creep driving around in a fucking van. My original take was, if you want to stop child sexual abuse, then you need to be willing to destigmatize pedophilia. Of course, I also clarified that pedophilia, by definition, is merely the attraction to prepubescent children. Pedophilia is not synonymous with child molestation. In fact, the majority of child molestations are actually committed by non-pedophiles. They're usually committed by sick individuals that genuinely take advantage of power dynamics and exploit vulnerable people. And it's usually child molesters that will abuse kids, they'll abuse boys, girls, and even adults if they can. It's about exploiting the vulnerable for those people. But then on the other side of things, you have pedophiles. Now, right now, the research is very inconclusive about how people become pedophiles, whether it's because they were victimized, whether they were born like that. But one thing seems to be pretty well understood, which is, unfortunately, pedophiles cannot just hit a switch and stop being a pedophile. Two options for this person. One, they abuse a child and act on those dangerous and immoral attractions. Okay? Or two, they seek help and get therapy where they are able to be put on medication, where they are able to be put on medication that reduces libido, where they are able to go through therapy, which has already been done in Germany, for example, and they found very positive results. Destigmatized, I recognize how that word can sound kind of yikesy, and so that's ultimately what led to the deletion.
Yeah, you gotta be a little bit more careful, Hunter, with your words, as we covered in the show recently.
Yeah.
And I know you're trying to imply, you did say that pedophilia does not actually mean child molestation, but most people, including me, and I'm sure maybe you too, when they hear pedophilia or pedophile, you probably think that. So you have to consider that as well.
It's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, so even if it doesn't literally, like, dictionary mean that, most people associate with that, so you need to be more careful when you say that. And if you phrase it more carefully, maybe you wouldn't have this big of a controversy, because, like I said, he covered this something like this a few months ago, and he did not get this backlash that he is getting now.
Of my first tweet. And so,
and also to his point, because I think he's going to be covered later, because I also find, even for, like, pedophiles, I find it really cringy when, like, people, like, advocate, like, killing all of them and stuff like that. It's really, really creepy and stuff like that. Advocating people dying and stuff like that. If it's possible, and as he's going to be covering later on, it is possible to maybe, like, go through, like, therapy and stuff to maybe prevent people from doing it. Wouldn't you want to maybe consider taking that option instead of doing something very extreme? Like, he's going to get to it later, so I'll hold my tongue.
I deleted or I posted something clarifying. I will now go through my tweet here and then explain why I am being canceled for being against child abuse, while all the people trying to cancel me are, whether they are intentionally or not, adding and contributing to more child rape. Yeah.
And just so you know, the stuff that people said to him really are, like, some of the dumbest things, even if what you're saying you think is pretty silly.
Yes, I know. I said, I've deleted my controversial pedo tweet due to the misunderstanding of the word destigmatize. I only meant the stigma needs to be reduced to the point of making it easier for pedophiles who haven't harmed kids to seek therapy without fear of total retribution. Now, this is true. Right now, the way the intense stigma is around pedophiles, it deters people who have not harmed kids from seeking therapy and getting actual fucking help for these dangerous and immoral attractions. And you know what? When you don't get help, that makes it more likely that they will hurt somebody, that they will offend. If a pedophile is suffering and they are upset by the fact that they have these attractions, and then they are treated like an outcast, even though they've never harmed a child. When they are isolated and they feel as though they have nothing left to lose, that raises the likelihood that they will harm somebody. That is the truth of the matter.
And that also applies for other things that are stigmatized too, that might not necessarily need to be stigmatized as much. So, and that goes for all of you to, like, advocate, like, killing pedophiles and stuff like that. You inadvertently really are making it possibly worse.
Okay?
Exactly.
So, just to be crystal fucking clear, I am not advocating for normalizing pedophilia. pedophilia is wrong, bad, dangerous, and it puts children at risk, which is all the more reason why we should be willing to talk about preventative measures for pedophiles who have these attractions but have not yet acted on them. This really is not that fucking
And he's going to talk about later, but I do need to be pointed out too. Not everyone who does have, that's a pedophile or has like attraction to kids, not all of them are going to actually, carry out their acts. You got to be able to distinguish, you got to distinguish between offenders and non-offenders.
complicated. I clarified with that. Of course, people are still reeing nonstop. And I say having an attraction to kids is a bad thing. That's what pedophilia is. It's not synonymous with child abuse. It should carry with it a level of stigma, which I also agree with. I'm not saying totally destigmatize this, guys. Yeah, there's no shame whatsoever involved with being a pedophile. Fuck no. There should be a healthy level of stigma. But right now with this literally burn all pedophiles, if you even have a bad thought about a child, holy shit, you should be strung up by your balls and thrown into a wood chipper. You're not helping anybody. You're not. What you're doing is isolating individuals who might have immoral and dangerous attractions. You are deterring them from getting help. You are then making it more likely that they will offend. So yes, you are contributing to child rape. I don't give a fuck if that's controversial. If you are up here on Twitter reading nonstop about me being willing to say that preventative actions should be taken, which has been empirically demonstrated to lower the abuse of children, then fuck you. You are pro-child rape. Whether or not you intentionally are thinking that doesn't fucking matter.
Damn.
You are pro-child rape.
That is Hunter Avallone, when he is as conservative self. A weird way to put it in that regard.
A little bit of conservative remnants staying still there in him. But
yeah,
you know what? That's actually a good thing for Hunter specifically.
Yeah. So what do you guys see about his point overall so far?
It is certainly interesting. It's it's definitely a thing that he actually does cite that Germany has tried this and it's actually worked.
Well, he is going to be talking
How
about
effective it actually is would be is a little more questionable, but the preventative actions, like I said, prevention is always better than the cure.
Yep.
So,
and also he'll be covering the literature in a little bit.
Various studies have shown that the way in which pedophiles are heavily stigmatized and wrongly viewed as people who have already abused kids deters those who have these dangerous attractions but haven't acted on them from seeking therapy. And I'll bring this study up here, which is what I cited.
Yeah, you guys advocating like killing pedophiles and stuff like that? It looks like you're making it less likely for them, if they're not offended, to be able to get help to not actually offend, which overall is the main thing. You want to prevent this stuff, don't you? Hey, you know what? Just like conservatives the pro-lifers always cry about abortion all the time. Well, you know what will lower abortion? Sex education, legalize abortion, and other things. But they're always against the things that actually lower the abortion rate.
Stigmatization of people with pedophilia, 2 comparative surveys. And it's a long PDF, but I would highly recommend you guys check it out. I sourced this little blurb from it, though, and I will read it now. We argue that confusing the logically distinct categories of pedophilia and child sexual abuse does not only create an enormous social and emotional burden for the discredited PWP, who see their life opportunities diminished because of a condition they could neither choose nor change, but that stigmatization of atypical sexual interests can also influence sexual and non-sexual behavior of stigmatized individuals. In the case of people with pedophilia, fear of discrimination may lead to social isolation and thus a reduction of social control of pedophilic sexual urges, as well as the chance to implement preventative measures. Man, that sucks, doesn't it? When I'm empirically correct and you all are coping? Damn, that fucking sucks. So again, am I saying we should destigmatize people that abuse kids? No, those people deserve to be burned at the stake. Am I saying that we should destigmatize or normalize pedophilia?
That little bit of Christian remnant
pedophilia is a bad thing, and it's a very dangerous and immoral attraction to have. However, if you recognize that it is dangerous and immoral, I would think you would want to take preventative measures to keep people from acting on these dangerous and immoral attractions. Isolation makes it more likely these people will abuse a child. Recognizing that a reduction in the level of current stigma reduces child abuse is crucial. That's what I'm advocating for. Pedophilia should not be normalized. It deserves a degree of stigma. Germany has made it easier for non-offending pedophiles to seek treatment, and they've had positive results with therapies, SSRIs, and libido-reducing medication. Not all pedophiles are child abusers. Many are disgusted with their attractions and need help. Again, 95% of child abuse and child molestations are committed by people that are not pedophiles. They are committed by men who are in heterosexual relationships and are taking advantage of vulnerable individuals. And those people, believe me, are sick as fuck, okay? Those people are disgusting. And then I say, although this is a controversial take all the same, I hope I've made my stance clear. Recognizing this reality can and will reduce child abuse. So that is my take. That's what got me canceled on Twitter.
Yeah.
Recognizing that pedophilia refers to the dangerous attraction that people have to children. It does not actually, by definition, include the abuse of a child. But if you have an attraction to children, you are more likely to abuse a child. So therefore, you should get help fucking immediately. And because of the way the stigma is right now, that deters people from getting help. The stigma of pedophilia, clinical and forensic implications. There is an emerging consensus among researchers that having pedophilic interests is not synonymous with child sexual abuse or other amoral behavior. Nevertheless, misconceptions about pedophilia are highly prevalent among the general public and mental health practitioners. This article provides an overview of recent findings on the stigma of pedophilia and derives guidelines for medical health practitioners based on these results. We argue that stigmatization of people with pedophilic sexual interests has undesired, indirect effects on risk factors for child sexual abuse, particularly on an emotional and social level. Also, fear of being rejected or treated unethically may prevent pedophilic individuals at risk for sexual offending from confiding in medical practitioners or psychotherapists. Psychologists working with pedophilic individuals in forensic or clinical settings should be aware that stigmatizing people with pedophilia may increase their risk of sexual offending and provide help to deal with potential stigma-related repercussions. Let's bring this one up as well. This is a blog post in the Journal of Medical Ethics. Pedophilia and child sexual abuse are two different things. Confusing them is harmful to children. Pedophilia and child sexual assault are two different things, and conflating them is not a good idea. This is not just a matter of semantics. From one thing, confusing psychiatric disorders, which requires treatment, and sex crimes, which may or may not follow from such disorders, is likely to hamper clear moral reasoning. But more importantly, it may actually increase harm to children. Consider the following. Many people with pedophilia, 1, hate their desires, 2, do not act on them for moral reasons, and 3, often do seek treatment precisely because they are aware that people in general cannot seem to tell the difference between A, feeling involuntarily sexually attracted to young children, and B, molesting or sexually assaulting children, which is very wrong in and of itself, no matter what the reason. And here's the kicker. Failing to seek treatment for A, feeling involuntarily sexually attracted to kids, is precisely the sort of thing that makes B, molesting kids, more likely to happen. The latter, not the former, is a sex crime and a serious moral wrong. If the goal is to protect children from harm, as it should be, then we should stop stigmatizing pedophilia per se and start stigmatizing, or keep stigmatizing, those who actually sexually abuse children for whatever reason, whether they happen to be pedophiles or not. In other words, non-offending pedophiles should not be stigmatized so long as they do not offend, nor mistaken for sexual abusers. Instead, they should be encouraged to seek treatment for their disorder before they cause harm to children, which will only happen if we can keep clear about the difference between A and B. So this is just another one, no big deal, from the Journal of Medical Ethics. This is a pretty cut and dry thing. Like, if somebody is a pedophile and they cannot change that fact, then preventative measures should be taken. Obviously. It's actually really, shocking to me that this is what I'm getting canceled for. The most fucking obvious take of the decade. If you have a dangerous attraction, you should get help so you don't act on that dangerous attraction. Whoa! Wow! Even more so, a good friend of mine has sent me, more precisely, this is a piece of research done from the Czech Republic. Let me read you this. It's in, it was in different language, but I translated it. So right now in some US states, pedophiles are automatically reported to police, not with a criminal charge, but as potential suspects. And again, this is somebody who might say, like, I have this really bad attraction and I don't know what to do. Not people who've actually harmed kids. Those people need to go to jail immediately, okay? But right now in the U.S., we have mandatory reporting laws, and their doctors are required that they report these people who haven't even harmed kids. The opposite is in Berlin, which is where it is mandated by law to not disclose pedophilia from patients unless they commit a crime or plan to. And this law has empirically decreased the number of child rapes and increased the number of pedophiles going to therapy. Keep that in mind as well. When you provide the proper avenue for these individuals to seek help, you will lower empirically the rate of child abuse. Media coverage of pedophilia, benefits, and risks from healthcare practitioners' point of view. The fierce stigma associated with pedophilia may interfere with attempts to prevent sexual offending, and estimated that only about 1/3 of media coverage portrays pedophilia realistically. To destigmatize pedophilia and benefit the prevention of child sexual abuse, a fact box for journalists was developed based on practitioners' expert knowledge. So this is a little bit more of an anecdotal report, admittedly, but still, this seems to be building towards a pretty decent, consistent opinion, which is simply that if you are attracted to children and you have not harmed a child, then you should go and seek help fucking immediately. And right now, because of the way the stigma is, because of the way we require doctors report their patients, even if that patient has not harmed anybody or doesn't plan to harm anybody, you are deterring people from seeking help. You are contributing to child rape. So there's that. And then finally, from Psychology Today. This is a really nice short little read. I would heavily recommend it. There are several therapeutic treatments that can be an option for those with pedophilic urges and can help modify one's behavior and mental health while struggling with their situation. These include cognitive behavioral therapy, empathy training, and reconditioning approaches. Oh, guys, listen to everybody that's triggered. Many people with pedophilic urges do not seek psychiatric or psychological treatment due to the stigma around the condition in society and the mandatory reporting laws in the United States, which can lead to legal consequences if pedophilic acts are acknowledged. Now, I'm not sure I agree with this wording, because if you acknowledge a pedophilic act, which, by the way, is not just abusing a child, it would also include looking at child porn, then you should face legal consequences for that. But as far as admitting that you have these attractions and need help, you should not be facing legal consequences for that. Are there therapeutic treatments for pedophilia? For people with pedophilic disorders who do seek help, research suggests that cognitive behavioral treatment models may have some effect. Such models include aversive conditioning, confrontation of cognitive distortions, building victim empathy, assertiveness training, relapse prevention, surveillance systems, and lifelong maintenance. The prevention project, this is really important, okay? The prevention project Dunkfeld clinics in Germany, which use cognitive behavioral methodology to teach clients how to control their sexual impulses, have treated more than 5,000 people who have voluntarily come forward seeking services, because Germany does not have mandatory reporting laws comparable to those in the United States. The clinic also offers psychopharmaceutical interventions, including, when needed, testosterone-lowering medication to dampen sexual appetite. The project's initial results, while based on small samples, appear encouraging. Participants have been shown to experience improvements in their self-regulation abilities and decreases in attitudes that support sexual contact with children. Research has disproven the perception that sex offenders are especially prone to recidivism. Recidivism means returning to a crime that you've already committed. In reality, recidivism rates for sex offenses are lower than for all other major types of crime, and the U.S. Department of Justice has found that only about 3% of child molesters commit another sex crime within 3 years of being released from prison. Meta-analyses of hundreds of studies confirms that once they are detected, most convicted offenders never sexually reoffend. And they put in parentheses, not all sex offenders who victimize children are pedophiles. Only about 40 to 50% of convicted sex offenders who've sexually assaulted children meet the diagnostic criteria for the disorder. I want to see less child abuse, so therefore we should be proactive instead of reactive. And even more so, my approach, right? Think about if you have somebody who's attracted to a child, right? My approach is get help, get on medication, lower the likelihood that you are going to hurt somebody. Everybody else mad at me on Twitter who are LARPing cunts are actually the people saying, just wait until a child gets abused and molested and then prosecute that person. I agree that if you hurt a child, you should go to prison. You should face serious repercussions, okay? I don't give a fuck. Once you fucking abuse a child, you are dead to me. You're done, okay? Your life has expired, my friend. Would it not make sense to act in a way that prevents people from harming a child? My approach prevents children from being harmed. The reactive approach waits for a child to be harmed and then prosecutes the perpetrator. Now let's go through some of the more cancellation on Twitter, okay? This is what people seem to be really triggered by. Yeah, as someone who was sexually abused when I was 8 years old, I just don't think pedophilia is a thing we need to be less hostile towards. But what would I know? Shrugs. So a couple things. One, being less hostile to people that have these attractions and have not acted on them is what literally contributes to them seeking therapy, thus making it less likely they will harm a child. And so I responded, you wouldn't know anything. If you did, you'd want non-offending pedos to get treatment to prevent something terrible like that happening to another kid. But I guess just virtue signal while contributing to more child rape. Persecute me, crucify me. I don't give a shit, okay? Here's the deal. If you are a victim, that is horrible. That is the absolute, that is tragic. I'm sad that that thing happened to this person. I don't want that to happen to anybody. That's why I'm trying to be proactive. So just if you have been abused in the past, that is fucking horrible. But again, that doesn't mean suddenly you're right about your opinion when it comes to pedophilia. Comes across as a bit harsh? Yeah, I don't care because I care about deterring child rape. So if I have to be a little bit harsh to somebody with a brain dead fucking take, then yeah, I will be harsh if necessary. If you want to say like, oh, it's a little harsh, fine, but like my point stands. I'd probably steer clear from using that phrasing against someone who may be in a trauma headspace. No, I'm not. No, stop with this, okay? You don't get to come on Twitter, lie and spread bullshit and also advocate for something that has been now empirically demonstrated to reduce non-offending pedophiles from seeking help. And then get to say, oh, well, I was a victim and I have trauma, so don't refute my point. Don't be mean in your response to me. Fuck off. This was an adorable one so funny I actually had to tweet this and explain exactly what the big problem is. I said, there's a difference between offending pedophiles and non-offending pedophiles. Surely you can recognize that, right? I'd been arguing with this guy for a while. And he goes, I see no difference. And I think the people who side with you aren't okay. Now
there is a difference.
Going to keep from soying out as best I can, but wait, let me get this straight. You see no difference between an offending and a non-offending pedophile. Agree with Hunter, but damn, you really dropped out of that optics game. I don't care, Lash. Please fuck off. I will be bad optics towards you if necessary as well. There are so many people that are pro-child rape on Twitter, and I'm going to call them all out. Okay, they're sick fucks.
Yeah.
Like this guy, for example. I see no difference. You see no difference? An offending and a non-offending pedophile? One has harmed a child, you fucking dipshit. One has not harmed a child.
Exactly.
And whenever I get into these kind of conversations and they say they see no difference, then
if they're not harming kids, then they're not a problem. But they should get their whatever is causing to have those urges checked out, but they're immediately not causing the problem. Just like when it comes up with people that are all the isms. If they're not doing anything, if they're not harming anyone, then leave them alone.
And instantly, it becomes crystal clear. They don't care about protecting kids. They only care about hating pedophiles.
Just
they
like
don't
with
care
QAnon.
about protecting children, because if they did, they would recognize that there's a difference between a pedophile who has fucking molested somebody that deserves the chair and somebody who's a pedophile who's trying to seek help so they don't hurt somebody. If you unironically have this take, then I just feel sorry for you. God fucked up, okay? You're an example that God is not in fact benevolent because he could never create such a despicable plight on human society such as yourself and people that agree with this guy. And I also included this as well. Child molesters, a behavioral analysis in cooperation with the FBI. What then is the difference between a child molester and a pedophile? For many, the terms have become synonymous. The media frequently makes no distinction, and the use...
Yeah, like I said, that's probably the big reason why, Hunter, you got so much shit recently.
Use the terms interchangeably.
Yeah,
labeling all child molesters as pedophiles is, however, confusing. There are clear differences between the types of individuals who sexually abuse children, and law enforcement officers handling these cases need to make such distinctions. A child molester is an individual who sexually molests children. A person might have a sexual preference for children and might fantasize about having sex with them. That person is a pedophile. But if he does not act out on it, then he is not a child molester. Lastly, I am in no way advocating to normalize pedophiles, and I'm not even advocating to completely destigmatize pedophilia. Simply to lower the stigma to a healthy degree in which people who have these dangerous and immoral attractions can seek therapy without fear of total retribution. That's it. I don't want them out there living their lives being isolated, which makes it more likely that they'll offend. I don't want that. I want to see less kids getting harmed, okay? And so this is simply the best solution that we have right now. As someone who is a child who was affected, I completely agree with you, Hunter. Yeah, and that's the other thing too. I'm not like attacking a sexual assault survivor. I'm simply explaining that their attitude is in fact a virtue signal that contributes to more child rape. Sorry if that fact is inconvenient for you, but that is just the fact of the matter. Now we get to Shoe on Head. I am burning the bridge with Shoe on Head. I'm sure she'll act as if like, oh, it's just a meme. Hunter's so serious, ooh woo. Because Shoe on Head has, even when we were kind of like on decent terms, has always been a spineless piece of shit coward who will drop takes, say shit, and whenever she gets called out for it.
Shoe on Head, in my personal opinion, has been one who, even when she seemed to swing back towards the left, seemed kind of a grifter to me.
She will hide behind the memes. She will hide behind the memes. She'll go, oh, I was just kidding. Oh, why can't you take a...
Reminds me of the time when she actually was on Hunter like a year or so ago, when she did a meme tweet about like guillotine the rich and all that, and she just couldn't... She literally spent like 20 minutes explaining to him, and she could not explain to it simply like, I don't see a problem with advocating for that or like joking about it. To me, it's not a big deal. Like, she couldn't just say something like that and make herself look silly against Hunter.
Joke. Oh, why are you so sensitive, boo-hoo? Nobody's sensitive. Nobody here can't take a joke. We're just sick of your spineless behavior. That's all. Somebody tweets this. You know, I did delete this tweet also because it was getting dogpiled, and yeah, but I still stand by it. I am absolutely floored by how many sick fucks are on Twitter, and the amount of people against non-offending pedophiles seeking help, which reduces child abuse, is shocking. There are so many disgusting creeps on here that want more child rape. It is absolutely sickening. And this person posted this, you know, oh, don't make me tap the sign. It's not rocket science, guys. They're just evil and want to diddle kids. Okay, if you think pedophilia is evil, you should want to reduce evil in the world, right? And so then Shoe on Head responds, oof, and says, quote, we need to remove the social stigma of child rape. And half the people replying were like, quote, you're correct, but optics, give it 5 years. So I don't know if Shoe on Head is just incredibly fucking stupid, which let's be honest, I'm sorry. I do know. She is incredibly fucking stupid. And I do not think that her brain is capable of forming a thought outside of 140 characters. And so I would be really curious to know, where did I ever say to remove the social stigma of child rape? When did I ever say this? I have never advocated to remove the social stigma of child rape. Child rape should be as stigmatized as humanly possible, okay? I don't support the death penalty, but if you rape a child, I might change my opinion on that, okay? Absolutely. Never have I once advocated to remove the social stigma of child rape. And the fact that she would even try and quote me as saying this demonstrates the reality that she is a bad faith bimbo bitch who only exists on this fucking platform to post dipshit takes and get a bunch of simp followers because she's a girl who's like moderately attractive. That's it. She is actually a subhuman piece of trash, in my opinion, and no, I am not interested in reconciling with her. I am happy to talk with her on stream, but until then, no. I am done with my engagement with Shoeonhead. She is one of the most pathetically stupid individuals probably on the planet right now, and again, the fact that she would be so blatantly bad faith and quote me as saying that I want to reduce the stigma of child rape, which is abhorrent and something that is not even comparable to what I ever fucking said, is a demonstration that she is not functioning within standard levels of human cognition. It is abhorrent to me. And the fact that you are so bad faith that you would just jump on this hate brigade without even doing an ounce of thought, which, let's be honest, you don't have any thoughts because you're a fucking thought. This is exactly the problem that I've had with Shoeonhead. She is pathetic.
Damn,
this is
Manta.
disgraceful and despicable in every conceivable way. So again, I've never advocated to reduce the social stigma of child rape. I've advocated to slightly, to a healthy degree, lower the level of stigma that we place on people who have pedophilic attractions but have not yet acted on them, so that they can get help, so that we can see empirically the rate of child rape decrease. I want to see less child rape. And Shoeonhead, you want to see more of it. So that's Shoeonhead for you guys, and this is why I'm no longer engaging with this this dumb bimbo, is because she doesn't know how to read, she doesn't know how to think, is so incredibly terminally online that you can't really have a reasonable conversation with a person like this. Finally, she has even made videos before.
While they may change their politics, they do not recover from their reactionary right-wing idiocy, and Shoeonhead is certainly one of them.
I think verbatim almost. If you are attracted to a child, you either need to go to prison or go to therapy. She agrees with my take. She agrees that if you are attracted to a child, you need to go to therapy. The only problem here is that she would rather virtue signal on Twitter while simultaneously contributing to more child rape. While I actually have the balls and the fucking spine to give empirically demonstrated facts on how to reduce child rape, and because it hurts Shoeonhead's fifis, then this is what we get. We get my take, which is identical to hers, being misconstrued by her that I'm saying I want to destigmatize child rape. Absolutely sickening. So, Shoe Gives Head, fuck you. And now for the block.
Shoe Gives Head on block on Twitter.
Goodbye, cunt. That's the drama for the most part, okay? Me?
That's why, Hunter, please become more progressive, that way you can be more based like this.
Saying that if you're a pedophile who's attracted to kids but hasn't harmed a kid, you should be able to seek therapy and get medication without fear of complete and total
such as
social ostracization, which has now been demonstrated to lower the likelihood of child abuse. We also know that when pedophiles have been isolated and treated as complete outcasts, when they feel as though they have nothing left to lose, they're more likely to harm a child. That is my take. Pretty cut and dry. If you're a pedophile, which means you're attracted to kids, and you have not yet abused a child, you should be able to get help. And apparently that's enough for me to get canceled on Twitter, for me to get attacked as a literal pro-child rapist by Shoe Gives Head, and basically just dragged through the mud as a fucking pedo defender. People might want to cancel me because, you know, they would rather there be more children get fucking raped every day so they can get a few likes on Twitter. I rest easy knowing that at the end of the day, my behavior here only leads to less child abuse, and everybody mad at me, coping, reeing, screaming, and acting like a dumb fuck are enabling child rapists. They are the sick fucks here.
Damn, Hunter with the owning at the end. So, geez, what do you gotta say about that?
Savage Hunter, love it.
But yeah, we gotta see about the overall.
Yeah, in regards to shoe up ass, yeah, I'm gonna say it right now. I consider her a grifter.
Now, what do you gotta say about Hunter's overall point, though?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a bit wonky with the wording. I think he needs to adjust the wording to make it a bit clearer.
That's the problem. That's the problem. We do live streams and stuff. That's why I always prefer like very serious topics like that to like do it off screen and do the video. Then that way, if you screw up, you can like fix it. But yeah, it's like guys, when it comes to like pedophiles that aren't like actually doing anything, yeah, they need to get help, and they shouldn't be like threatened with like death or anything like that. It's just cringy.
No.
And from the stats that he showed, looks like it might not even work. Which, of course, in the end, if you want less child molestation, you want to do the things that work. So maybe you should listen to Hunter, because it sounds like he might be onto something that you aren't. It might be a little bit more nuanced than just die pedophiles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, I've always thought that was like really cringy all the time. So yeah, finally we're done with that owning. Now on to the next thing.
That would be Biden. Is Biden not running in 2024?
I actually just saw this video earlier today too from Kyle. So let's see, because we've been covering it since like when Biden first won. Will he run in 2024 or will he not? Because we've seen things that, oh, he will not. And then we see things, oh, he will. So here's a new one now. So let's see what this is about.
All right, so we got a little bit of news here that's kind of interesting, if I don't say so myself. This is in Business Insider. Democratic Representative Carolyn Maloney said off the record that Biden is not running for re-election in 2024.
So this is a Democratic representative saying this too. This is like this might be one of the biggest people to ever say this, because like all the things that say he wasn't going to run before, like reports and stuff like that. This is an actual congressman saying this.
Interesting.
All right, let's see what she says. See what we got here. A leading House Democrat told the New York Times in an interview published Saturday that President Joe Biden is not running for re-election in 2024, appearing to give an off-the-record remark to the publication. Representative Carolyn Maloney of New York, who is running for re-election in the city's 12th congressional district, was asked by the editorial board about whether Biden should seek re-election. Quote, "Off the record, he's not running," Maloney, the chairwoman of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, said during the interview, which was conducted on August 1st. Quote, "Not off the record, on the record," Times editorial Giodi Thotham said, awesome name. "On the record," Maloney responded, "No, he should not run again." A spokesperson for Maloney did not immediately respond to insiders' request for comment on Saturday. Earlier this month, Maloney said during a debate that she didn't think Biden would run again in 2024. "I don't believe he's running for re-election," the congresswoman said at the time. However, she walked back her statement shortly after the debate. Quote, "I will absolutely support President Biden if he decides to run for re-election," Maloney tweeted. Biden's leadership securing historic investments for healthcare, climate, and economic justice prove once again why he is the strong and effective leader we need right now.
No,
totally
just
back
no.
Maloney is on the August 23rd Democratic primary ballot for New York's 12th, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I don't know why she said it so definitively, and I don't know where she got it from. Look, I don't know how close she is with Joe Biden. I don't know if she's actually a friend of his and they talk every now and then, and that's why she said it, because she knew it, or if she's just shooting from the hip. But look, the fact that she came out and did the backtrack thing, that leads me to believe she got over her skis, and that wasn't a fact, and then Biden's team was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then she reeled it right back in. But look, I'd be lying to you guys, though, if I said I wasn't happy that now at least there's some speculation about Biden not running again. Because, I don't want him to run again.
Neither do I.
I mean, I would much prefer... Shit. You can't say Peter Kamala because they're terrible.
Bernie.
Marianne Williamson. Bernie Sanders.
Yep, Bernie.
Exactly.
You know, I'm sure there's others I could think of. I mean, even I would take a shot in the dark on somebody like Raphael Warnock or John Ossoff.
Ossoff
I could see it.
sucks.
I could see it. I hope that is the case.
I'm
but
leaning if it'd be anybody. The only one that might consider it's Warnock.
And then, of course, there is AOC, since we know she's old enough, but
Yeah.
she probably would not have a good chance to win because she keeps shooting herself in the foot.
I don't know. I'm still leaning in the direction of he's gonna run.
Yeah, I'm more in
all
that
the
direction,
indications
too.
are there. Everything he said about it indicates he's gonna do
Unfortunately.
it. Usually people get a little taste of that. First of all, the people who are inclined to run for that office in the first place have a massive narcissism problem and ego complex, and they don't want to give up that power once they taste it. And so I think it would be a similar situation here, that he don't want to give it up. I mean, I guess we'll find out. I'm happy that there's some speculation that he's not going to run, but ultimately I think this is nonsense. I think he's going to, as long as he can run, he will run. But there's the massive asterisk of, is he going to make it that far? I mean, homeboy's not looking too good, if you know what I'm saying. But anyway, look, he came up.
Like, for all of you who don't know, one, he's going to be 80 years old this November. If he makes it to January 2025, which is when his term ends, he'll be 82. And then, God forbid, he runs and actually wins in 2024, makes it all the way up to 2029, he'll be 86 years old. He's already the oldest president ever elected, and he can break it again if he runs in 2024. And then on top of it, do we need to remind you all about all the gaffes he's done over the last several years? Remember,
He and a lot of people honestly, mainly in the Republican Party, but a fair few in the Democratic Party as well, are basically being kept alive, but they're already dead, and they're being kept alive by the dark side of the Force.
Yeah, they are. He is brain dead. He's not right in the head, as we covered many years ago back when he was running for the third time. He's not right in the head. Whereas Bernie, who is older than him, will be 81 this September. Exactly. He is not brain dead. He is well sharp, plus being correct on all the policies.
Exactly.
So, it is a concern. It is a wonder if would he even make it to 2024, or hell, even make it to 2028 if he won again.
Came off a slate of victories recently, and his numbers have gone up. He was at a low of 33%. He's now bumped up to 40% approval rating.
Which, that's a huge accomplishment to get your approval rating up that high after it's so low.
The PACT Act, which was healthcare for toxic burn pit victims, our veterans. They passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which had a whole bunch of things, including a 15% corporate tax rate in there and some green energy stuff in there, some tax credits for electric vehicles and things of that nature. They passed the CHIPS Act, which brings back American microchip manufacturing. So he's on a slate of victories. And then never mind Roe versus Wade, which cuts in a pro-Democrat direction in terms of the polling. He's had a bunch of victories recently. But, I mean, look, on the flip side, even though people would use that as an argument of, see, he's going to run again, you could argue, well, dog, go out on a high note, because you know you're going to fuck up a second term. This is...
I don't know, Kyle. I think Biden might be too dumb enough to think he hasn't done anything wrong yet. He's that senile.
He was dead. He was zombie dead. He was gone.
He might actually... I know for example, Pat Robertson's wife died recently, and it's actually looking like, I reckon, Pat Robertson's probably going to follow fairly soon. Like, he's looking at... I've seen the last couple of clips with him, and he's looking bad even for Pat Robertson.
And he's older than Biden, too. He's like almost 100.
Onzo.
Patty, he's like 90... He's 92.
Somebody speaking sense in his ear and saying, just get out while you're ahead, bro. At least be remembered as, like, mediocre. If you get out now, maybe you'll get the benefit of being called mediocre by the media, right? So, who knows? If you want to see me and Crystal Ball...
So, yeah... What do you think about this? Like, what do you think about Biden's chances? Do you think he would run?
I'm thinking 80%. Like, I'm not 100% sure anymore, but I still think it's a good chance he'll at least attempt.
Yes.
Though if he does, he will probably die during the primary.
Yeah, I think he'll run again too. But of course, like we said earlier, if he does run, he's the president, so he's gonna have like almost a guaranteed shot at the Democratic nomination no matter what. He could just like pretty much sit back and not have to worry about it. I mean, he didn't have to do anything against Trump, and we saw how well he got that one done. So now we hope he doesn't run, so a progressive can replace him. But right now, I think he will. But we can only hope that this report is indeed true. All right. Yeah. So now on to the final topic, which unfortunately, after laughing along with Hunter at idiots, now we're going to have to be sad. As another post Roe v. Wade abortion story, which is absolutely horrible. And it's absolutely disgusting. And we're going to keep covering this to show you why Roe v. Wade should not have been overturned, because this is just evil.
This story blew up online yesterday for obvious reasons. This is in The Independent. Louisiana woman forced to carry fetus missing skull to term or travel to Florida for abortion. A new Louisiana law has outlawed abortion with very few exceptions. So this is, I think there actually is like literally no exception in Louisiana's laws. Like there is, like they've just done a hard ban on abortion. For this story. Mm-hmm. And what things can you say that wouldn't get you banned off YouTube? I mean, it's hard to talk about this story while maintaining your poise. A woman in Louisiana said that she has been told that she must carry a fetus without a skull and part of its head to term or travel out of state to receive an abortion. Nancy Davis, a mother of one, is 13 weeks pregnant.
13 weeks. Not even a late-term abortion year, so I don't want to hear no bullshit from idiots.
Several weeks ago, an initial ultrasound revealed to Miss Davis that the fetus would have no chance of surviving. No chance. But because Louisiana's abortion ban does not include an exception for acrania, the condition the fetus is suffering from, she cannot get a legal abortion in the state. If Miss Davis does want to get an abortion, she will have to travel out of state to Florida. But time is running out for her to make a decision because Florida has banned abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy, giving Miss Davis a small window to schedule an appointment and arrange her travel should she decide to get the procedure. And we don't even know what her financial situation is. Maybe it's cost prohibitive. Louisiana is among the Republican-led states that passed extremely restrictive abortion bans to take effect in a post-Roe v. Wade landscape. The state has banned all abortions, except for cases in which the mother's life is in jeopardy, or in some cases in which the fetus is non-viable. I love that. Some cases in which the fetus is not viable. A group of plaintiffs filed a lawsuit to stop the ban from taking effect, but
thing with it, there are states where it's not even that. And I'll tell you, there's, once we finish through this, there's one even worse that's North Carolina's trying to bring in.
It's absolutely disgusting.
The Louisiana Supreme Court last Friday rejected their appeal. That has left Miss Davis with an extremely limited set of options in trying circumstances, and Miss Davis isn't the only person who has dealt with similar circumstances in recent weeks. So this reminds me of the story. Remember the 10-year-old?
Yes,
10-year-old
we covered it.
who was raped and wanted an abortion and couldn't get it. And by the way, the right at the time questioned if that story was even true. They argued
conservatives
like
don't
it was
ever
fake,
believe
effectively, and then we
real.
learned they
they live in a fantasy land, so of course everything is fake.
And every aspect of that story was true. You know your position sucks when you can't even accept or digest the basic facts of the story without it immediately shattering your position. And that's what they did. They refused to accept it because they knew how terrible it made them look. So they're like, this isn't even real, bro. Turns out it was real. And now we had a story like, I mean, this is something like out of a horror movie. Forced to carry a skullless fetus missing part of its head to term. Forced to do that.
Yep.
What if that would kill the mother? How about that one? But of course, we know you pro-life retards. You want women to die because that's the reality of the situation.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even understand
this,
how
I'll tell you what.
this makes
How
sense
far
under-
North Carolina's planning.
What?
Oh, just get to the end and I'll tell you how bad it is.
Because if the fetus isn't going to make it anyway, and we know that, well then, why wouldn't you allow this issue to be dealt with up front, right now, as soon as possible?
Because they don't care.
They really haven't.
Yeah, they love watching women
logic
die and stuff
of their position, and they really haven't tied up the loose ends. When you talk to certain people on the right, I mean, you get things all over the place, right? Some people say there should be no exception for rape or incest. I mean, look, some of the hardcore pro-life people probably think even if the life of the mother is in danger.
Yeah, they just don't think it should be available ever.
Even if the mother might die.
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
you can't play favorites and pick one over the other because then you're signing up for murder. So you just got to kind of let nature take its course, and whatever happens, happens. If the mom dies, right?
Which is disgusting.
And this is where we're at.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it all stems from a mistaken notion, a silly notion, that basically the second you're done having sex, there's a third person in the room. It's an active war on nuance.
Said that verbatim.
They just pretend like a gamete or a zygote is equal to your neighbor Bob.
Well, it should have more rights than the mother.
It's crazy. And by the way, this sort of extremism has consequences. This sort of extremism is one of the main reasons why Democrats went from being down 6 to 8 points in the midterm polls to now they're tying or even slightly leading.
And are on verge of increasing the lead in the Senate. So, your
Yeah.
extremism is overwhelmingly...
We need to mention in cinema.
Yeah, so because of your extremist policies that the majority of Americans are against, now you're less likely to get what you want. And if anything, this might... Because there's a whole bunch of states we covered, I think it was last episode, they have a whole bunch of abortion laws going up. It's going to make it more likely for abortion to be more legalized. because of you guys being insane.
It's within the margin of error,
Yes.
but they're still in some polls slightly ahead. This is why. Because Americans don't agree with this. Go ahead, poll this specific case. See what happens. What's it going to be? 98% on one side of it? And it's the logical consequence of these primitive, retrograde, backwards-ass laws. This is where we are. So anyway, for the love of God, change the laws. Let her get the abortion.
Yep.
And by the way, we're going to get a lot more horror stories like this moving forward.
And every
Ever
time
since-
I see one of these, I'm going to cover on here because it's absolutely disgusting, heinous, and all could have been avoided if Roe v. Wade wasn't overturned. Guess what?
Exactly.
This is a fatal fetal defect. That should be able to get an abortion, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And it's 13 weeks in, which is usually about when most abortions happen, so I don't want to hear no late-term abortion crying about or anything like that. Fuck you.
Exactly.
Absolutely disgusting.
Yep.
So what was this about North Carolina you were bringing up?
Oh yeah, North Carolina's law that they're going to set up in November. Not only does it ban abortion no matter what, but it also effectively legalizes murdering women who are seeking abortions.
Not surprised. And of course, I wouldn't be surprised if women have miscarriages if they would suffer the same fate. Which, by the way, guys,
Yeah,
that
one
historically
that
was the
actually
case.
has women who are being prosecuted for having miscarriages.
Yeah, that's a historical thing, guys. Women have miscarriages, and they're
Yeah,
prosecuted.
in modern day, there's been a couple in America since Roe v. Wade was abolished.
Yep, and women are suffering and dying because of conservative retards in this country. Absolutely disgusting and shameful. And by the way, thank you for helping us more likely to win. So hopefully these laws will fail, like it happened in far right Kansas last time we covered.
Yeah,
remember?
that was it. That was cool.
Because majority of Americans don't agree with you. So eat shit. It's absolutely disgusting and horrible way to wrap it off the episode. But hey, that's just what happens. So that's going to wrap it up here, guys. See you guys next time for episode 17.
57, you mean?